All right, Angie, you can start. We are live.
Cool. Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everybody joining from different parts of the world. So my name is Angelina Costa, and I'm tuning in live with Product People and will be your host for today. So before we begin, we would like all of you to get up on Slido so that you can engage with us. We have an icebreaker poll coming up, and also for any questions and answers, questions that you would like to post to our presenter, you could also use Slido for this purpose. So one way that you can do is on the left, you have this QR. You can scan that directly and join us on Slido. Or you can also go to slido.com, post the code 7980270, and then meet us up on Slido. So while you do that, we are also live streaming on multiple platforms like LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So make sure that if you have any friends that like to join us, that you call them over on these streams as well. So hope you are on Slido right now, and hopefully looking forward to engaging with us as well. So today we have a very interesting topic, which is which ceremonies for your product discovery trio. And that will be run by Samuel here. So it's going to be a really interesting and really neat topic in terms of what we're going to learn today. So encourage all of you to, again, engage with us, send questions. If Slido is not working for you, you could also use the comments section on the platform that you're in. We have our colleagues manning those channels as well. So a little bit about me, right? I come from a background of product management and business analysis, doing that for the past 5 years. And in terms of the industries that I've worked in, I've been in B2B, B2B2C, and also did my degree in business information systems. So it was basically a natural progression into this role. So I'll leave more about me for later and quickly go into what we do here at Product People. So we provide interim product management services using our 42 in-house employees that provide services around product leadership and product operations. So we are also really big on spreading knowledge across product topics, and we do free events and talks just like this one in order to spread knowledge and also get in and help any aspiring product managers with any type of topics that they would want to get to know about using the presenters and the knowledge that we have. So before we begin, we would really like to get a sense of who our audience is today, so that Samuel, our presenter, will be able to also get who the audience is. And the question and the icebreaker poll that we have for you today is, which habit do you find most beneficial for product discovery? So the first option is interview customers as a team every week. Brainstorm as a team every week for your second choice. The third option is treat experiments like user stories. And finally, we have define OKRs for discovery. So again, you could meet us at slido.com, scan the QR on your right, or directly enter the code that you have on the screen, which is 7980270. And please post your answers there. You could also use the comment section on whatever platform you're at, and we'll be happy to get those answers as well. So I'll pause here for now for a little while until you get your answers up and running. Cool. We have our poll in. So for interview customers as a team every week, we have 80% of the audience saying that as the answer. Brainstorm as a team every week, 40% has chosen that answer. Fortunately, unfortunately, the third and fourth options don't have any answers from the audience. So with that in mind, over to you, Samuel, for the topic, which ceremonies for your discovery trio? Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Angelina. Yeah, it's quite interesting, Paul, to see that the focus is on the research and ideation, a bit less on the experimentation. So we'll drill into that because that's the subject of today. Let me find the right sharing. Share, click. Here we go. You can see my screen, right? Beautiful. Thanks for having me. So here today, I want you to talk about product discovery and what I discovered by doing it. So it's kind of based on dual track Agile. So still some Agile practice. So the ceremonies we know in Agile, sprint planning, review, retro. But these are new ceremonies specifically for product discovery, and still focus on the trio. So a lot of product teams use a trio of a product lead, a UX design lead, and an engineering lead. So having the three components is always key to progress together. But ultimately, it's pretty much based on the Jeff Patton dual track. The idea is to have the whole team contributing to both track, discovery and delivery. But they have the trio. In my view, one of the great ideas to have the trio as kind of founders, like a startup founders, the three founders with equal rights, equal voice. So we need to agree on the way forward. And as a startup, so I always like to see the product team as a startup trying to conquer their product vision. So yeah, the three ceremonies we go through today are user-centered insights, user-centered experiments, and user-centered strategy. So I think the idea is to bring a bit more human-centered design into this dual track method from Jeff Patton, and trying to focus on the user first. Obviously, we are businesses, so we need to be able to make money to survive. But first, we need to bring value to the customer. That's why one thing I always like to do is to still do some research with open eyes without a fixed business intent, and to do user insights as opposed to business intelligence. So really drill into the user pain points, gains, and from there, find out where you can play, where you have some competitive advantage to provide value. So always start with insights. The strategy, at the end of the day, is a cycle. The strategy will inform and focus the insights on every rounds, every cycles. So insights first. From the insights, usually we create a how might we statement, trying to find out from what we found, what can we provide as a value, and move to experiments. And in the experiments, we design. We don't use MVP much. We use the term minimal viable experiments. So the idea is to, from the insights, validate or invalidate what you found, and trying to move towards delivery or not. So from we use the Kanban. We'll go through that to move those experiments from ready to done. And the output of experiments or deliverables is a map of validated learnings. We want to validate and validate everything we found, and then we have a concise view in the form of a user journey when you can see all those validated learnings, so very much lean startup style. And from the experiments, we move into the strategy to decide are we going to move to delivery with those or not. So here I use a derivative of the impact mapping, also pretty close to Teresa Torres opportunity solution tree. But we also want to bring a bit of a more lens on the business. One thing we do is a continuous business casing. and then create a lean canvas for all of those before moving to delivery. And then the strategy will align a bit more the insights. Obviously, you cannot do research out of the blue all the time. You need to focus on the area where you can bring value. So 3 ceremonies: insights, experiments, strategy. And they are part of this dual track organization. So at the bottom is the track, the delivery, sprint planning, review, and retro. I remove the retro here for simplification. But on the 2 weeks sprint method, we align with the same duration with first an insight. Then we do 1 week of ideation with daily ideation habits. And then we start with experiments from those insights. Do 1. Sometimes the experiments can go further, 3, sometimes even 6 weeks. And then we review insight and strategy on a 2 weeks basis. And then when we validate, these items move to the product backlog. Once they are validated, they go to delivery. Usually it's more on a 6 weeks cycle, but it depends on your domain. So we start with insights, the first ceremony, and the focus is to have both qualitative and quantitative. And continuous interviewing is one of the great method to keep a pulse on your market, keep a pulse on your user, and also shadowing. What people say is not always what they do, so it's good to have a bit of both. The hearing them with full empathy and shadowing, looking at what are they doing, either live in a design sprint style or just reviewing recordings. And all of that usually go to a research repository to align, to do some, mainly we do affinity mapping. What are the things we hear often and are repeated? And on the other side, it's a bit more tech focus, the quantitative. We have more and more data available to us, behavior analytics, NPS surveys, support tickets, transcript from support, from sales, pre-sales, CRM data. And those are very interesting to correlate with the qualitative components. And especially now with LLMs, you can do a lot of strong things by correlating this data and doing mainly NLP, natural language processing, and segmentation. So you can pinpoint for a specific segment what is the sentiment on. I'm quite focused on the e-commerce these days. So if we take checkout, delivery, you can have an index for the sentiment specific to Gen Z, for example. So you can monitor, are the Gen Z happy with delivery, or is there some deviation? So obviously it's difficult to analyze all this data. So the idea is to do some topic analysis, see what kind of topic is recurrent. If we talk about some reordering, using the topic and the sentiment for this topic, you can see the baseline. And one thing that is quite strong actually is to just do a standard deviation from an index. And then you still have anomaly detection. Is also good to detect if sometimes customers use your product in a very different way that you expected. So all of this go to a data lake, and we call it distilling our lake to go into our wall of pain points. Sometimes we call this ceremony the distillery. We distill the data and make a concise wall of the pain points. So the next step out of insights is the wall of pains. When in e-commerce, we have a kind of quite well-established user journey from awareness to checkout and delivery. So we can put on this map some snippets from interviews or data directly, and we classify them from the severity of those pain points. And frequency is also something key we use. So here are just a few examples. I think we're going to share the link if you want to drill into these examples. So this is that was the first ceremony, insights. After the insights, we move into ideation, and we are all used to the daily stand-up and realize from my experience, what is good for ideation is not really to do that together as brainstorming, but to do daily sit-downs as opposed to daily stand-up, and to do that actually alone and in silence. So the idea is that every day, each of us, we think about the how might we statement we focus on from the wall of pains, and we start thinking about what would be a solutioning, what could be a good idea, and it's based on the brainwriting. There's the link and the Miro template in the Prezo. The idea is that every round, first you introduce one idea, and then you improve on one of your colleague idea, then a new idea again, then improve to the idea. We 2 rounds each day for 1 week. And one of the good way to improve on someone else's idea is to think a bit like the blue ocean strategy. Think out of this idea, what can be added, removed, increase, decrease, to shift the proposition, to differentiate yourself, and sometimes to compare to other industry. So for e-commerce, in fashion, we like to compare to how is it solved, what are the solutioning in food delivery or traveling. So I'm trying to think in a neighbor industry. So this is the ideation doing every day. And at the end of this ideation, we got some assumptions of those potential solutions, and we move into the experiments. This is the second ceremony. And the first thing we do is, at the end of the day, the goal of discovery is to de-risk. So we always map those propositions. We do some dot points voting on the key one, and then it's pretty good visually to see which one are important for your outcome. So for pretty much for your product vision, is it a key element, or is it a secondary element for your success? And then the certainty. Do you have a lot of certainty on delivering that, or is it still a very blur domain? So we focus on the top left, actually, unknown and critical for the delivery of your vision. We want to de-risk, so start with the most risky assumption. Still in the experiments, we move to our Kanban of experiments. So a bit more typical Agile, from ready to done, and it's all about UX prototypes or other type of minimal variable experiments. And we also have a DOR, definition of ready, definition of done. Definition of ready, you have to be painful and frequent, and we need to know which one will be our control variable. You might see on the top right, sometimes we impose for 1 week not to change something. So we don't want to change some of the email communication. We don't want to change some options. Sometimes we even lock some onboarding to make sure there's a control variable. Because at the end, you cannot change everything at the same time, the same week. Otherwise, you don't know what was the reason for it. And then the definition of done is pretty much to be statistically significant. Actually, the definition of ready is part of our card, experiment card. So each sticky note here is a card on the board, and we need to describe specifically what will be the outcome. So what do we believe will happen, and what will we do in order to check that? So you have to describe exactly what you will test, how you will measure it, and what will be the threshold to validate or invalidate this experiment. So this type of UX prototypes, we do a lot of mock-up for early tests, sometimes even guerrilla type in the street. But now you have a lot of online solution to test with pretty large audience, A/B test some mock-ups. So we're working on a shared wardrobe proposition. So out of that, the last step of the experiments the deliverable is this map of validated learnings. So we know if the experiments was validated or unvalidated, and if it's validated, it goes to this board. This kind of consistent view. Sometimes we overlay the wall of pains with the wall of learnings, so we can see if there is a lot of pains with not many learnings, we probably want to focus on this area, and it's classified by the confidence. Are we 100% sure that this learning was validated? And then we move into strategy. So at the end of the day, I know a lot of people start with strategy. I think it's good to start with a full open eye in your research to gather insights, but ultimately, as you go through the cycle, you need to frame what you research. And basically, there's a lot of solution impact mapping when you start with a goal, an actor, and what can be changed. There's also Teresa Torres opportunity solution tree. And a lot of them, they start with a business outcome. And here, this endeavor to be a bit more human-centered design, we want to start with the user outcome as opposed to a business outcome. And for us, we believe that the ultimate user outcome is your product vision. What you want to change your customer or augment your customer, a bit like in the job to be done sense. The ultimate outcome is a transformed or augmented user by borrowing your product. So you listen to them, and then you articulate what you think you can do to them with your competitive advantage. And that will be your vision. And what we do, we use a bit of a mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive slicing. That's why we also call it the product vision slicing. So what are the independent elements that create your vision? And quite often is some separate or complementary jobs. That's why we slice it into some job to be done. And those jobs, usually we have some drivers and deterrent. So we also use that to look through the whole spectrum. So they are like agents of change or switching costs. And only from there, we start the opportunity solution tree. So with opportunities aligned with the drivers or deterrents, solutions we spotted in our ideation, and then experiments to validate and validate. So this can become a big Christmas tree, but Miro is pretty good for that. You can zoom in and out and expand the tree in the right area. And then, ultimately, a bit more classic. The last two slides is about now it's about prioritizing your solutions. So if you have a different proposition, it's all about value versus effort. So usually you start top left, quick wins, something high value, low effort, and then top right, high value, but high effort is a bit more strategic. So that's the way to prioritize. But we also have another lens on this, and we call it the reverse funnel prioritization, which is about looking at the funnel but upside down. Usually you have acquisition, onboarding, retention, and the experience. At the end of the day, we think that there's no need to nail. You need to nail the basic first. So nail that first on the basic, then provide some delighters. I always think it's good to start delighters early. If you don't want to be just another solution, you want to differentiate yourself, start moving on delighters. At the end of the day, we always have a bit of a different epics on different area, but it's a matter to make sure we get the right weight, the right focus along the year, pretty much. So the idea that there's no point of onboarding a lot of people if you not have a good retention. There's no point of acquiring a lot of people if the onboarding is a disaster. So this is one way to look at it. And we also look at with continuous business casing, we look at the value of that. But we think basic needs, usually it's your volume of user, so the monthly active user. If you have something, it's a bit like the product-led growth. freemium system. If you have something valuable and people can experiment quickly, you can create a lot of monthly active user. And then if you have delighters, you can start monetizing with add-ons and premium. And then, yeah, retention, usually the focus is pretty much the bottom on the customer lifetime value. Onboarding is about the cost to serve. Support is also cost to serve. And acquisition is to nail your customer acquisition cost. And we always look at the CLV over CAC is a great one to focus on. So yeah, the idea is to start from the left and then increase the bandwidth to fill your funnel with quality. You don't want to fill your funnel with the wrong persona and the wrong customer. And that's the last slide to recap. So one thing is good about the trio is to think about a startup with 3 founders, equal founders, and one team working together on both track, dual track agile. And instead of having the same ceremonies, because in my experience, using sprint planning, review, retro for discovery is not very efficient. So my recommendation is to use insight, experiment, strategy, 3 focused ceremonies. And then for the quantitative, so continuous interviewing, I think there's a lot of good elements in that. But for the quantitative side, I think having some baseline, focusing on the deviation and give you some great insights on what to focus on. And also, as we said, starting with the insights, so having a really separate problem space first, solution space second, is always great, not to confuse both and not to fall in love with a solution before you understand the problem. And yeah, we spoke about the async ideation, daily sit downs with the brain writing method. I think it's more efficient than brainstorming. We also do brainstorming maybe twice a year with the extended teams. So with sales, marketing, customer success. But for the every second week, we do that with the product team. And then, yeah, experiments is a lot more about sync up and agreeing on which variable have to be locked. And for the strategy, yeah, use focus on user outcome first. Then your strategy is about the path to growth and monetization. But if you know you got value here, there will be a business outcome for sure. And then, yeah, we didn't talk too much about it, but you also use OKR, part of our tree, to kind of classify them. So we want to make sure what we work on is aligned with the quarterly OKR. So part of this impact mapping, we also have a lens through OKRs. That was one of the questions. Everybody said no, nobody used OKR for discovery. At the end of the day, the OKR have to be for a business focus. So it makes sense not to have OKR for discovery, but to align your discovery with your business OKR. And then I think something that is usual now, using the quadrant to prioritize. I think it's great to visualize instead of using scoring. I've been using scoring in the past, but sometimes you end up with a 3.23 compared to 3.47. Which opportunity are you going to work on? Very difficult. When visually, when you have 2 or 3 opportunities to focus on, as a team, you can agree which one is actually more in a quick win section compared to more strategic sections. So that's it for our presentation. And we're going to move into Q&A.
Cool.
Stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Samuel, for that awesome topic in terms of all the ceremonies that we can use. And also for bringing in your practical experience and talking us through those ceremonies. It was a really insightful session, and thank you once again. So we'll be moving into the Q&A. And for those of you who are just tuning in, please feel free to scan the QR or directly go to slido.com and join us using the code 7980270. We already see that there are questions coming in, so feel free to jump right in and ask and post any questions that you have for Samuel here. And I'm sure he'll be happy to answer with any clarifications that you have. Post for him. So while you do that, I'm going to buy you some time by getting into a bit about who Product People is and what exactly we do. So we work well in 3 different verticals. The first one being providing interim fractional product management services, where we cover things such as permanent position covers, parental leaves, and also work well when it comes to important and urgent initiatives that need to be driven. So the second segment that we work well in is product coaching and consulting, where we coach product management teams and also are able to create streamlined processes and programs. And the third segment is product discovery, where we're able to really discover the next impactful product or even run a low or no code pilot MVP for your company. So these are a few of our B2C clients. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just a snapshot view of who we have worked with. The same with B2B clients. So all the way from Pliant to Ometria to Sastrify, certain logos that you already know of and have dealt with as well. So a bit about our company and statistics associated with us. So we have supported 200 cross-functional teams. We have 42 product leaders and product managers, and we have 66% of women in leadership, with 62% of women in the team. So that being said, I quickly go over to the Q&A. And while we are at it, please, again, feel free to post your questions either through Slido or using the comment segment that you have on your platform. So the first question that we have for today is, can you explain the process and tools you use to review customer sentiment and voice of customer? How do you incorporate this feedback into your journey mapping?
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot. It's a domain with there's more and more tools. I started in analytics with IBM, which was a bit more classic. So standard deviation was a big thing, and it's still pretty strong. And then I use a lot of NLP tools before LLMs, so to analyze sentiments. Mainly, actually, Microsoft has a very strong NLP proposition. But nowadays, there's some tools like Next is an application that can analyze a lot of your data, a lot of your transcripts, and can slice it as well. For interviewing, I use Ju2. Ju2 is great for scheduling, so you can even request a type of area you want to focus on within your journey. So if you want to do interviews about delivery, you can schedule interviews about deliveries, find the right people. But yeah, I think nowadays, I think it's still the beginning, but LLMs, if you check the website, there's an AI for that. I think I've seen there's about 20 to 30 tools around. I think Insight7 is also a strong one. There's a lot of tools to analyze your transcripts, your data, and create some synthetics.
Cool. Thank you, Samuel. So the second question that we have is, how do you approach assumption mapping in your product discovery process? Can you share specific frameworks that help in identifying and validating assumptions?
At the end of the day, this is more like a human touch. So together, we take the how might we take the different solutions that came from brainwriting, and we agree on where to put it on the board. At the end of the day, we also work async, so people put by themselves their solution on the board. So we use Miro. Miro is used pretty much all the way in our process. I'm about to to try to get the template released. So maybe I'll add it to the comments in the future. But at the end of the day, it's all about to agree together. Is it critical to your vision, and how much do we know about this particular assumption?
Cool.
So no LLMs in this case.
Thank you. And the third question that we have is, how do you facilitate, how might we brainstorming sessions to ensure productivity? How do you effectively prioritize initiatives using initiatives focused scoring?
So we don't do too much scoring. We used to do that before. We still do what I call product 360. I think twice a year we get together with an extended team, like an offsite, with sales, customer success, marketing, and then we do brainstorming. Where we take one or two how might we statement, and everybody has a nice dynamic of collaboration, and it can create a lot more ideas. But I think along the year we prefer to do this brain writing when everybody at their own time. So we have a reminder in our calendar. Everybody creates some idea for the one how might we of the week, and from that then we position it into the assumption mapping quadrant.
Cool, thank you. So next we have, how do you prioritize hypotheses in your funnel? Do you have specific criteria or frameworks to determine which hypothesis to test first?
Yeah, so we do the assumption mapping. So importance and certainty is the one we use to prioritize hypothesis. Then we use the reverse funnel prioritization more for solutions. Sometimes we have a look at this within the hypothesis. So if it's an hypothesis about acquisition, are we going to be more efficient on acquisition on this segment? And we know it's not the focus of the quarter, then we kind of deprioritize, even if it's unknown, critical to the end state. But we look a bit of both assumption mapping first and this reverse funnel prioritization.
Cool, thank you. The next question is, how does a typical 2-week cycle look like where delivery and discovery run in parallel? Can you give us a rundown on the recurring events?
Yeah, so we still have the classic sprint planning review retro on a 2 weeks cycle. And at the same time, we get another 2-week cycle, pretty much synchronized, which is the insights experiment strategy. And so same team. Sometimes we have maybe a bit less people in the discovery ceremonies, so it's a bit more intimate. But you always have the trio, and at the end of the day, there is a rotation. So we want to make sure everybody contribute to that. We also always have a sync up every 6 weeks. So sometimes it's not everybody is participating every single 2 weeks, but there is a rotation, mainly from engineers. We also have customer success, marketing joining, especially the continuous interviewing. So you have the trio 100% of the time, plus kind of special guests.
All right, thank you. The next question is, could you share some best practices for managing a Kanban board for experiments? How can we ensure efficient movement of experiments through the stages?
This one is also the human side. Together, we decide to move this experiment card from left to right. So you have to match our definition already. So which is the test, the hypothesis, the metric, and the threshold to validate, and then together, depending on the focus, we schedule the next set of experiments. Because at the end of the day, we focus on one part of the journey map each 2 to 6 weeks max. So we don't want to move too many items at the same time. So it's about agreeing all together. Those next 2 weeks will be about acquisition more than onboarding potentially.
Cool, thank you. The next question is, how can a product team member encourage leadership teams to embrace the dual track method, balancing the importance of focusing on outcomes?
It's true, still a bit of a new world, this product discovery. So I think one great thing is, so I've got this product 360 when you have executive joining twice a year. There's kind of an extended format of that. So it was a good introduction to discovery. Otherwise, actually, having executive participating in continuous interviewing is quite strong to let them see. And also, sometimes we do something closer to the design sprint. So on the last day, when you have a real user testing our prototypes, we have execs watching the live stream. It's usually it's a good eye opener to the strength of discovery.
Alrighty, thank you. So the next question is, what does continuous business casing involve? How do you balance it with the need to be agile and adaptive in your product discovery process?
Unless you're a startup, usually you have a baseline of revenue, of one-off cost and recurring cost, and then the churn that define your customer lifetime value. So the main idea is to compare for this particular opportunity, how much will it move the needle in terms of new user, so monthly active user, wherever you're going to move the needle on the spend per user, so the ARPU, average revenue per user, or for e-commerce is average order value with frequency. And then if it's more on the cost saving, is this proposition going to save some cost on onboarding, going to save some cost on the support? So we do a bit like the quantitative is focused on the deviation from a baseline. Our continuous business casing is focused on the kind of deviation, or obviously positive deviation, improvement to this income statement, really.
Perfect, thank you. And the next question is more so aimed at me, I suppose. So we have, I showed up a little late. How can I get at least your slide deck for further study? So you can always use our YouTube channel for this video, and it's linked there. So please feel free to use that to get a slide deck. And the next question that we have, Samuel, for you is, how do you keep track of all the tasks that need to get done during discovery? Do you use a separate Jira board, or is it all handled in Miro?
Yeah, pretty much all in Miro, because you have teams in different location, different time zone. We try to do everything that can be done async. We try to do async on Miro, so people add their idea for solutioning, propose to move an item on the Kanban board, and then we review. We do sync up during those ceremonies. The ceremonies are live 1 hour or even 2 hours events. But yeah, when as much as possible, yeah, everything is in Miro.
Cool. Thank you, Samuel. And that was our last question for today. So thank you, the audience, for posting those questions for Samuel. And you can also feel free to subscribe to our newsletter. You can scan this QR code where we share aspiring topics in terms of product through our newsletter that you can read and really get to know more about product. And so we'll be continuing our live streams, and the next topic will be developing your experimentation mindset. And the speaker will be James. So feel free to tune into this on the 16th of July as well. And thank you, Samuel. Thank you for this exciting presentation and for walking us through this topic that you had and for answering all the questions the audience has. And thank you, audience, for joining us live. We're product people. Please feel free to get more people to join with you the next time around and get the word going. So thank you very much. And signing out with product people. Angelina Costa.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Angelina.